When you receive an envelope from Social Security that seems to appear without warning, your body often reacts before your mind catches up. You may feel your stomach tighten before you even open it, because you already understand what it could mean. For many people receiving SSDI or SSI, that envelope is a Continuing Disability Review, or CDR. Even when you have already been approved, this process signals that your eligibility will be evaluated again. It is not a one-time decision. Social Security returns to the question of whether your condition still meets the disability standard, and the timing can vary based on how your case was classified at the time of approval. A continuing disability review is essentially a structured check of medical and functional status. The purpose is to confirm whether there has been medical improvement and whether that improvement would affect your ability to work. In everyday terms, Social Security does not set it and forget it. Instead, they schedule reviews periodically, or they trigger them earlier when new information arrives. Many recipients are surprised by this because the original approval feels like an ending. In practice, for many people, approval becomes the start of an ongoing documentation cycle. Appointments, records, forms, and the need to show a consistent medical story over time. How often you are reviewed depends largely on the category assigned to your case. Some conditions are expected to improve, so the review happens more frequently. If your condition is considered likely to improve, you may be reviewed every 6 to 18 months. Other cases involve a more careful expectation. Improvement is possible, but not expected soon, so the review may occur about every 3 years. For many chronic conditions that are not expected to improve, the schedule can stretch out further, often in the range of every 5 to 7 years. If you want to know your specific category, it may appear on original approval paperwork. If you have never looked for it, you are not alone. Most recipients do not think they need to until the envelope arrives. It is important to understand that a scheduled review is not the only path back to Social Security. An early review can be triggered by work activity, even when a person believes they are still within the lines. Reporting work, including part-time work, may cause your file to be revisited. Programs such as Ticket to Work are designed to encourage returning to work, but they can still result in your case being reviewed. In addition, information in your medical records can prompt an earlier look. A doctor's note might mention that you are feeling better today, or that symptoms have improved somewhat, and Social Security may interpret that language broadly, even if the improvement was temporary or limited. Social Security can also initiate a review from information provided by others. This can include an anonymous tip, where someone reports concerns about whether your disability appears to be consistent with public observations. While such reports are not always accurate, Social Security typically must at least take them seriously enough to examine the file. The practical consequence for you is straightforward. Your eligibility is influenced not only by what you experience, but also by what is documented, reported, or communicated into your record. Therefore, the safest approach is to treat your medical and administrative documentation as ongoing, rather than something you assemble only when a deadline is near. When the review begins, you will generally receive one of 2 forms in the mail, a short form or a long form. The short form is usually a more limited check-in. It may ask basic questions about whether your condition has changed, whether you are working, whether you are seeing doctors, and whether there are any new developments. If the answers appear stable and no new concerns are raised, the review may not require further action. The long form, however, is the one that many recipients find intimidating. It requests a detailed account of your medical treatment and how your condition affects your day-to-day abilities, rather than offering a quick yes or no version of your life. In practical terms, the long form demands detail that you may not realize is necessary. You may be asked to list every doctor you have seen during the review period, include hospital visits, and identify medications and dosages. You may also need to describe how your condition limits basic daily tasks, with specificity rather than vague statements. Social Security is not asking only whether you have symptoms. They are evaluating functional impact. This is where careful, accurate completion matters. Panic can lead to overly broad answers that do not match your actual limitations. Freezing can lead to delayed responses that fail to meet the required timeline. Either outcome can harm your benefits, regardless of how serious your condition truly is. Deadlines are not a formality. Completing the review thoroughly does take time, and you should not rush into vague responses. At the same time, you must treat the deadline as non-negotiable. If you miss it, benefits can be stopped automatically due to a paperwork failure, without requiring an in-depth medical reevaluation to occur first. This is a common and deeply frustrating problem. Even when the medical facts are unchanged, missing a required submission can create immediate financial uncertainty. The core guidance is balanced but firm. Answer honestly and specifically. Do not postpone until the last minute, and ensure your submission is received and completed on time. Because you cannot predict whether the next review will be routine or triggered early, the best strategy is to maintain a clean paper trail year-round. That means continuing medical care consistently, even during stretches when you feel comparatively better. Avoid treating good periods as proof that records are no longer necessary. Request updated documentation that reflects your current functional reality, not simply a brief note generated from a short refill visit. Keep copies of everything for your own records: appointment summaries, test results, medication lists, and any forms you submit. Maintain the folder in a place you can access quickly. Records can be lost between offices, faxes can fail, and sometimes information simply does not move through the system as intended. When that happens, you are the person who must supply continuity. If Social Security determines that your condition has improved enough that your benefits should end, the decision does not always have to be final. You generally have the right to appeal. Most importantly, act quickly. If you file within 10 days of the decision letter, you can request that benefits continue while the appeal is being decided. This 10-day window is crucial because missing it by even a small margin can result in benefits stopping while you wait for the appeals process. That wait can be lengthy, and the immediate impact on income can be severe. Mark this number down for yourself and treat it as a time-sensitive administrative fact, not as a suggestion you can revisit later. Beyond the paperwork and deadlines, there is an emotional component that often goes unspoken. A review forces you to re-explain, again, what your worst days look like, what you struggle to do, and how your condition limits your independence. The exercise can be exhausting because it requires you to translate lived experience into formal responses for an audience that does not know you personally. Many recipients report that the process can cause stress long before a decision is issued because it demands that they revisit painful details repeatedly. The emotional toll can be real, even for people who are organized and steady. Recognizing this effect helps you understand why the process can feel more burdensome than it should. It also helps to understand what medical improvement means in Social Security's framework. This is not merely a subjective sense that you are having a better week. Social Security evaluates improvement using a defined standard focused on whether your ability to sustain work has changed enough to meet the program's disability criteria. Their focus is functional capacity, what you can do over time in a way that aligns with the demands of full-time work. A temporary flare-up, followed by a short period of relief, does not automatically qualify as improvement in their legal sense. Conversely, a careless phrase in a doctor's note can create confusion, especially if it is interpreted as a broad, permanent improvement rather than a momentary change. For example, a medical note might include language such as, "Patient reports feeling better today." That statement can be factually true and medically accurate, yet it may be read out of context. Social Security may interpret it as improvement in the condition overall, rather than improvement relative to last week, or improvement in a single symptom, without overall functional improvement. This is why you should ensure that your records reflect the full picture of your condition, including variability and how limitations persist. You do not need to exaggerate, you do need to be clear. Specific and accurate documentation can help prevent your real-world experience from being compressed into misleading summaries. If you receive both SSDI and SSI, or you are unsure which program applies to you, note that their reviews are not identical. SSDI is linked to your work history and the taxes you paid through employment. SSI is need-based and tied to income and resource limits. As a result, SSI reviews may include financial aspects in addition to medical evaluation. When someone is eligible for both programs, they may experience separate review tracks that do not always align on the same schedule. That can create additional complexity because two processes may require different forms, different timelines, and different documentation. Planning for that possibility early can reduce confusion and protect you from missed requirements. If you are currently receiving SSDI or SSI, do not wait for an envelope to force your planning. Identify your review category if you can, so you have a realistic sense of timing. Keep medical records current throughout the year, not only when you sense that a review may be coming. Maintain copies of documents you submit and copies of documents you receive. And if you ever receive a decision letter that goes against you, treat the 10-day appeal window as a priority. Social Security reviews can feel unsettling because they require you to prove again what you already proved. But with steady documentation and timely responses, you can reduce uncertainty, maintain control over your records, and meet the process with clarity and readiness.